All right. Awesome. Well, good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you're at. And we appreciate you joining us today. My name is Brad. I'm head of product marketing here at Scanifly, and I have Santiago Jaramillo with us today, who's our sales engineer. And we're going to be talking about the evolution of shading analysis technology in solar, and specifically how modern technology is an emerging technology is solving some long-standing challenges with traditional on-site tools like the Solmetric SunEye. And I think to kick things off, I'm going to walk through just a quick history of shade analysis tools and technology as we see it here at Scanifly for years, and how Scaniflies and some other technology can be a great alternative to a SunEye. And then Santi's going to run us through a live demo of the software and the shading analysis tools that we have, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So to dive right in, let's talk about the history of shading tools in solar. So many of you have been using SunEyes for years, and for really good reason, right? When Solmetric introduced the SunEye in the early 2000s, it was a major advancement in shading technology, digitizing at the time the solar pathfinder's manual process with a fisheye camera and more automated software. The SunEye gave us accurate, bankable on-site shading data that financiers and utilities trust. And the team at Scanifly, like our founders, a lot of the current team today who have worked in the industry, grew up on SunEyes and absolutely love the obviously the accuracy and the comprehensive nature of the data that it captures. And Santi's going to share some experiences of his own working with SunEye data as a designer previous to Scanifly. But that was the standard and the stalwart throughout the industry for a long time. Obviously, there's the emergence in the last decade or so of satellite imagery and LiDAR data, and Aurora kind of being the primary or notable player in that space for a long time, and gained insane adoption because it's fast and accessible. But I think, as we all know, there's inherent accuracy issues relying solely on remote imagery and shading data, risk of being outdated, blurry, and leads to a whole host of problems downstream in a solar project if you aren't going on site and validating things with either manual measurements, tools like a SunEye. And then now, kind of phase 3 of the historical shading timeline is drone-based shading tools in software like Scanifly. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into obviously Scanifly in a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about why we're having this webinar today and why people are looking for SunEye alternatives. Like I had mentioned, for years, SunEye was the standard, or really is still the standard in many cases for on-site shading. But I think there's, for a variety of reasons, it's ripe for evolution right now, and there's a lot of contractors coming to us struggling with things related to their SunEye workflow, and there are practical challenges at play here. You're sending crews on to roofs for maybe 60-90 minutes per site, maybe more in certain cases, to manually collect shade data and roof measurements. And someone back at the office, right, still needs to input that data into a separate software and generate the analysis. And meanwhile, we know that the truth is you're likely still missing roof dimensions as well, which can lead to revisions later on. We know the process often looks like capturing one or maybe just a few of roof planes and avoiding other areas, which has a whole host of problems later down the line. And there are also some real business realities that we're all dealing with right now. SunEyes are getting harder to service. Replacement parts are expensive or really difficult to find. Not to mention, right now they've effectively discontinued the release of new SunEyes for the time being. And so we just want to make sure that the market knows there is another on-site shade data alternative out there. And we'll get more into this as well, but obviously there's costs that are always a consideration here. And honestly, a new SunEye actually costs more than a drone that you would use in the process we're talking about, or the workflow with Scanifly. And with labor shortages, insurance concerns, obviously the ITC sunsetting in a few months, customers expecting some kind of rebate and faster turnarounds. The traditional approach to a proper site survey, which is the SunEye is central to that, it's becoming more challenging to sustain. So, and I'll call out here, we even have, this is a real text thread with one of our sales reps where a prospect, a contractor currently evaluating Scanifly, is essentially complaining about being on a 8 roof plane project in 100-degree heat for about 2 hours, and like that sounds a bit miserable, but we commend them taking the right steps to do the right work and do right by their customers and getting the right data. And that's again why we love SunEyes and the people that have been so steadfastly adopting and using them over the years. But they're running into scalability issues, as well as some of the things I mentioned around servicing and replacing their hardware. So that takes us to the easy alternative right now, and that's Scanifly and a drone. So with Scanifly and a 5-minute drone flight, you can generate the on-site shading analysis without getting on the roof. So you can create shade reports that are as accurate as the SunEye, more reliable than LiDAR, and approved by all major regulators and lenders. And it's a quick 4-step process. You fly, you upload the data, which can be done from the field on our mobile app. You generate the 3D model of your site and the property, and then you can analyze that and finalize your design. And what comes with that is being able to use AI to analyze obstructions and vegetation in the scene and on the site. There's inch level accuracy now within your design, on top of the real-time on-site shading that you get. That is the equivalent to the SunEye readings. So a host of benefits to going this route and getting those kind of permit ready CAD exports and outputs within 30 minutes, essentially, from that site visit, which Santi will get into in more detail. So lastly, for me, let me just share a specific example that illustrates why this matters, especially to our customers and in specific markets more than others, right? In Oregon right now, the Energy Trust of Oregon, ETO, requires the solar resource assessments using approved site analysis tools for their rebate programs. And they have different accuracy thresholds depending on the analysis method that you use. And for remote shade analysis tools, they require each array plane to have a TSRF of 80% or greater. But for on-site, like what you get with the SunEye, they only require 75% or greater. So that 5% difference can really help contractors qualify more marginal projects for those rebates or win more deals. And this is kind of where it gets interesting for SunEye users right now. If your SunEye breaks down or becomes too expensive to service, you could lose access to the more favorable TSRF threshold and essentially have to rely on remote shading instead if you don't have a backup plan in place. And like I mentioned, like that is sort of worst case scenario. We believe to have to cut corners or go back to a less accurate, less quality first and quality led approach. But again, the fortunate thing is the Energy Trust of Oregon has approved Scanifly's drone-based 3D design and shading analysis tools as another option for on-site data. So you maintain the 75% threshold using a drone and Scanifly instead of having to do manual roof measurements or rely solely on remote data. And this is just one example from Oregon's rebate program. So it illustrates a broader trend. There's a similar example, Austin Energy down in Texas, right? Same exact scenario. So whether you're dealing with utility rebates, finance requirements, or simply want more efficient, safer, and more accurate site surveys, having a reliable on-site analysis option is critical in our opinion. And right now, Scanifly truly is the only other on-site option available in the market. So that was a lot to set the stage for everybody. Appreciate you hanging in there with me. That said, if there are any questions throughout, and I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but please don't hesitate to throw them in the chat or the Q&A throughout the discussion. Santi and I will be happy to answer them in real time, and we'll obviously have some time at the end for dedicated Q&A. But before I hand it over to Santi to dive into the demo, anything you want to share on your end, Santi, that I might have missed? I know, like I mentioned, you have had experience with this hands-on, so I don't want that to go overlooked.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brad, and great to have everybody joining us today. Yeah, I used to be, like you mentioned, a designer. Did that for 3 years, and I was doing a lot of jobs in actually in Austin energy markets. That required really the only on-site option there that they would validate was the SunEyes, and I thought it was awesome tool, great data, much more accurate than just going off a satellite. But a lot of this has to do with efficiencies, right? There's an element of spending the time on the roof to collect the data, which is one part of the story. The other part is there's also a post-processing stage, right? So someone at the office like me, like a designer, would receive the data, would have to go to the SunEye app, the Saltmetric app, and process all those images, kind of like trace all the obstructions. So it was also a little bit time consuming at the time. You could spend on an easy job like 10 minutes, or if you have multiple roof planes, 30 minutes or more, because our surveyors at the time would take, I don't know, 5, 6 readings per roof plane. If you have 5 roof planes, you could do the math and see how long it could take you. But absolute awesome tool for shading. I think we're at a point in the industry where the industry is also needing, like more automation and better efficiency. So that's hopefully something that we could show everyone today, and kind of like show you how we can help you, not just on the field, but also on the different stages of the solar process after site survey as well.
Right on. Yeah, no, that's a very good point on the back office implications too. All right, cool. I'm going to cut my screen share here, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. I'll walk you guys really kind of briefly here the process on site. So what the site surveyor would be doing. What you're seeing on the screen is just a sample set of photos collected with a drone. So the process is very simple. Like Brad said, it takes 5 minutes or so when for your typical residential site. So what the drone's doing here is just, doing 2 circles around the house, taking photos. So here's an example. The key here is that we're capturing not just the house or the roof itself, we're capturing the vegetation. I'll show you how this translates to Scanifly, but the idea here is we're collecting photos from different angles, at 360. It's showing us the trees. We know the exact location of the trees. And then we're also collecting roof data at the same time. So the site surveyors, they don't need to get on the roof for measurements or for collecting shade readings, right? Pretty quick process, like I said, with the drone, taking photos. What's going to happen next is the site surveyor is going to upload these photos. They can do this from the field using our Scanifly mobile app for that, or they can go back to an office. And what we're going to do is we're going to process those images, and we're going to create a 3D model of that site. So you can see here, now this is the Scanifly design tool. You can see the same project that I just showed you in the images. It's now created in a 2-scale 3D model. So we call this a virtual replica of the site. And this is really going to inform you of different things. I know this topic is about shading, but we'll show you how you can get more data out of the 3D models. But to shading specifically, you can see here how we know exactly where the trees are located. We know the exact size, the exact heights of those trees as well. So we're not really relying on data from satellite or LiDAR that could be great tools, but they could still be outdated by a couple of years. So you could have a tree that is either no longer there, or a tree that grew a couple feet in the past couple of years, which will affect your shading analysis. And that's the little difference between having, an 80% TSRF or 75% TSRF for rebates as well. Scanifly will allow you to conduct 2 types of shading analysis. The first one that you're going to get is more of a visual analysis, more of a simulation where you can see different times of the day and different times of the year with this tool. So really nice for a visual. But more importantly, the tool that's similar to the Solmetric SunEye that's going to give you actual data is this little circles that you see on the screen. Scanifly will do a per module analysis, so it's going to get very granular with the shading analysis. And the software, what's doing, it's looking at the entire 3D scene and seeing what's affecting each module individually. So we're getting very detailed data. You can see the data, the shade readings, we call them view sheds, are also color coded. So the brighter they are, it means better solar access, like in this roof plane, or in this case, in front of the trees, we have a couple purple and red and orange shade readings, which means, lower solar access, lower TSRF. And in fact, you can see as I was kind of like showing you guys the readings, you can see each percentage for solar access and TSRF on each roof as well. Let me show you a little bit more granular data. You guys, again, if you're using the SunEyes, this may be familiar. Our view shed will give you also that like a 360 view of what's in front of that module. So think of it as if you're standing on that specific solar panel, and then our technology is calculating all of those percentages. So you could use this, and I can show you the process. I already had this design, but it really takes seconds compared to spending 15, 30 minutes processing the data. All I do is go to this roof plane, I do my design, fill it with modules, make adjustments, and you can see how the shading analysis is already there. So really, we're taking something that could take again, 15, 30 minutes or so to virtually less than a minute, less than a second, even if we time how long it takes to put the panels on. So all of that, helps with efficiency. Again, you have all the data here, and then I'll show you how, after you've done this, what you would do with the data, how you can present this to Austin Energy or the Energy Trust of Oregon, or really any other, because it really, we're validated by lenders, by utilities, by regulators. So really, whoever needs to see the share reports, I'll show you how to do that. Again, today's topic is really focused on shading, but I also want to mention that Scanifly will do much more than, right? We're seeing here a design. So you can actually use Scanifly to validate your initial designs. Make sure that everything you propose using whatever tool you use in the front end is actually going to fit. More importantly, it's very common, that you maybe miss an obstruction because the satellite data was outdated, or the pitch was wrong because the lidar was off. All those different things that could affect the accuracy of your designs. This will help make sure you don't come across any problems on installation. So essentially, Scanifly, just as an example, if I click here on my roof plane, it's going to show us roof dimensions. It's going to give you the azimuth. It's going to give you the tilt of the roof. So again, you can really get all of that information that the surveyor would collect manually otherwise would be provided to you here with the 3D models. Just keeping an eye here on the clock, just to mention a couple more things. Like I said, shading analysis validated by most regulators and lenders. Once you complete your design, you have the ability to export a shade report that's going to be very detailed, and it's what you can actually submit to this organization. So you're going to have a summary of your designs, all of the solar access information, production information, your shading sources, weather station data, everything provided in the shade report. And then if I keep scrolling down, it gets very detailed with the shading analysis. So you see here the little view sheds with the shading. Let me scroll down to the other roof plane that has more shade. So here you can see the other roof plane, all of the different values, the different shade readings. So it really is completed design. Press a button to export a PDF, and you're really done within a few minutes on shading. Okay. A couple of things I want to mention. Again, Scanifly, you can verify measurements, you can verify your layouts, of course, production with a better shading analysis tool. You can also make sure that your productions are within your limits. If you're offering production guarantees, making sure you don't need to like rerun any proposals or anything like that. And a couple more things that you can do with Scanifly. We've been known to be the drone guys for a long time. That actually Scanifly has evolved in the past couple of years, and now we have different tools that you could use for different stages of the project, like an initial preliminary design tool more for your sales, We have this mobile app that could allow you guys to also collect ground photos. So if you're also getting in the attic, taking photo of the electrical setup at the home, you can use our mobile app, keep everything consolidated in one place. We have integrations with racking companies as well. So if you're using them for either plan sets or you're using them for getting bill of materials, we have some integrations with the major ones. You can transfer your designs to them. If you own or if you have your own internal design team, you can also take this design with one click into AutoCAD for plan sets. So here's an example of that. You can export your full design here. You get obstructions, modules, fire setbacks, each individual roof plane split in its own little view. So you have each roof plane's information here at the top. So as you can see, we're really trying to help you guys work as efficient as possible, right? We're trying to cut times down significantly. We've already gotten great feedback from these integrations. So again, just to kind of like recap a little bit, we can help you guys on the field where you're saving time by minimizing your time on the roofs, and also at the office, once you have all that data from the field, really that processing that takes, kind of taking the project all the way from survey to engineering and permitting. We could also help you guys there. So I hope this was informative and helpful. I don't know if there's any questions, but back to you, Brad.
Yeah, I did see one pop up, and I think just in the essence of time, we can handle it in real time. Do you need a specific drone to work with Scanifly and for the shading analysis?
Yeah, great question. We're actually drone agnostic. So as long as your drone can geotag the photos, because the 3D model is created with a process called photogrammetry. So it's just stitching the images together, processing the metadata, which is the other important thing, is your drone needs to be able to capture GPS coordinates and altitude information, which most drones do nowadays. So those two requirements, high resolution camera, GPS coordinates, that's really what you need. So it's really up to users if you want to have those drones with a lot of automation and obstacle avoidance features, or really fancy drones that could cost, $1,200, $1,500, or you can go with the more budget friendly ones for like, I don't know, $700, $800. So as long as you can collect the data the way we need, those two circles, that's really the most important.
Awesome. And I think before we got one other. Oh, nice. We got a good question from Graham. I appreciate this one. And short answer is yes, but I'll see if Santi can actually weigh in, maybe show us something. Can you point me in the right direction for best practices when adding trees?
Yes, great question. Let me actually reshare my screen real quick just to show you a couple of things. So if you're using this tool, the software will show you exactly what the drone images show. So if the trees are already there, you don't need to worry about modeling the trees yourself, because those comes from us processing the images. Let's say there was, the flight was a little too short and the surveyor couldn't capture some trees that were maybe a little bit farther down the street or something, and you still want to use those for shading analysis. We do have a tool that would allow you to import trees and other objects. You can see we have a library here of different trees. We try to make this also as realistic as possible, so you see different species, different colors. And then you can actually go ahead and plant a tree on the 3D scene. You can see how my view sheds here are already updating in real time. And then you can just place your tree where you'd like. You can scale it. So if it's like a big tree, maybe a couple feet back again in the backyard or something, you can still model those in Scanifly, and it will inform your shading analysis. But the short answer is if the drone images show the trees, you don't really have to worry about manually building your vegetation.
Yep. I hope that was helpful, Graham. Also, keep an eye out. I guess I'll do a plug in our product roadmap, and hopefully no one on the product team hears this and gets mad at me. But we are in the process of updating and improving our what we call the import models library, which you see pulled down here in the drop down on Santi's screen, which is going to drastically improve the usability or the user experience of importing models like trees or other obstructions, occluders, and things like that. So even other 3D modeled objects externally that may need to be brought in. But long story short, specifically for trees, that process is only going to continue to get better. So keep an eye out for our product update emails, because as soon as that's available, we'll be both in the software and through some marketing announcements, be letting everybody know. Another question here, Santi. Does Scanifly have an option to add batteries to homes to calculate total production and bill savings?
Great question. We currently don't have anything within Scanifly as it relates to storage. However, we can make a connection if you'd like to software we've been working with that does an awesome job modeling all of these different scenarios. So happy to chat more about this, after the webinar if you're interested. We're actually integrating with them, so it would be a really nice combination of our design tool with their battery and storage model capabilities.
Yep. And I guess for another reveal to really drive home the value here for Kieran, who asked this, the software in the company is called SolarFacts. You may have heard of them, but they specialize in utility rate monitoring and specifically the battery modeling for resi projects. And so the combination of our design tools sort of embedded within their proposal battery modeling software is a really powerful combination. So if you want to learn more, we'd love to talk after. We'd be happy to go through a demo of that specifically for you. Awesome. Well, if there aren't any other questions, obviously feel free to keep them coming in. I know we're almost at time, but I essentially just wanted to, I don't even know if this warrants the slide, but I want to just kind of summarize what we talked about, right? Which is when you think of replacing the typical SunEye workflow, and it's got the shading implications that are, basically it's the crux of it all. But when you think of it, you're replacing several hours on the roof to get shading measurements, and you're likely going to be also trying to get some of the shading data, but also trying to get some of the roof measurements. That can be replaced with a 5-minute drone flight that gets you permit ready CAD and final designs and your approved shading. Let's just call it all in under an hour, right? So you're saving anywhere from 3 to 5 hours of this time when you include some of the back office post-processing, the entire rest of the site survey, any CAD work that's going to be done. So there's an immense amount of time savings. And you're centralizing your field and design workflows now in one place, all the way from pre-sale to your final plan sets, racking layouts, that which you saw Santi touch on some of the elements outside of the drone design. But all of that said, we do want to call out the fact that we know that you can't fly a drone everywhere. There are no fly zones. There are, obviously weather conditions. If it's raining pretty hard and the drone just isn't tenable in that situation, but it's safe enough to put somebody on the roof, this SunEye is still an amazing backup plan to make sure you're getting the best data possible while on site. So we just want to call that out. We have folks now that are, they're very open with the fact that they use Scanifly for 90% of the project, but they have the SunEye as the backup, given those scenarios where the drone is not viable. So SunEye is a great piece of technology, but an aging one. So we just wanted to make sure that we're open and transparent about Scanifly being an awesome alternative, and really the only alternative for on-site shading data right now. Great. Well, I didn't see any other questions roll in. So Santi, unless you have anything else, I think we can wrap this one up.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for joining us today. That's all I have on my end.
Amazing. Yeah, ditto. Thank you everyone for taking the time. And as always, the recording will be packaged up and sent out to everybody in the next day or two. So you'll be able to look back and review all this. And we're going to be including some resources as it relates to shading analysis and really everything that we talked to today, just going a level deeper with some actual data and shade studies and things like that. If you want to continue to read up on, the SunEye versus Scanifly, as well as how to get started and actually more practically replace the existing workflow with a drone and Scanifly. So again, thanks everybody. Appreciate it as always, and enjoy the rest of your day.